What's up, guys? This video is brought to you by Raid Shadow. No, I'm just kidding. This is a story about a king cobra that means more to me than anything else I own. Aspire. As you can tell, this video is brought to you by Aspire, my southern Thailand king cobra, who is also a rescue like Oracle. The backstory for him is that he was rescued from a bad snake farm. Now, the story goes that 4 years ago, me and a team from Fish and Wildlife flew down south, went to check out his snake farm, and then they ended up closing it down due to how bad the animals were kept and how corrupt the owner was. He was doing call-outs and rescuing kings, but instead of releasing them, he ended up keeping them and selling them to the highest bidder. And as I mentioned before, he kept the animals in such poor condition. Aspire was one of them. He was in the same cage with 10 other king cobras. And it was a mesh big cage lying in their own filth because it was a full cement bottom. There was no drainage layer. It was extremely filthy. Now, in the beginning, Aspire here was a handful, and I really mean that because I had to go by hand cleaning up all his wounds, removing 2 stuck sheds he had, and cutting out a lot of internal and external parasites. But as you can tell, he looks a million times better now. Now, he's no friend to the camera, of course. He sees his own reflection in the lens, and sometimes he thinks it's another male wanting to battle him. Now, he's been with me for about 4 years, and it wasn't always this easy. Let me tell you, within the first few months of having him, he was extremely defensive. He didn't know who I was, unlike now. And you can tell, he's not displaying his hood, he's not puffing up, he does not see me as a threat at all. Now, there are 4 rules when working with Aspire. 1, he is a completely wild animal, and you can't forget that. There are cans and cannots. If he doesn't want to do something, don't do it. Don't force him into doing something. If he says no, it means no. If he puffs up his hood or hisses, I don't mess with him. He's mostly curious about what we're doing out here, and he's staring at the lens of the camera, wondering when he'll do something. Isn't that right? Number 2, he doesn't trust anyone apart from me, because like I said, I was the one going hands-on into rescuing him. Sure, I went with the team, but Aspire ended up being in my care. So I spent months, well now years, 4 years, working with him closer and closer every day until he accepted me that I wasn't a threat. It took about a few months for him to stop hooting at me completely. I used to put him in my room, like free roaming, and I would do my own thing. And for that, it was for him to understand that I wasn't a threat, that I wanted nothing to do with him, or that I was a space that he could ignore. Now, of course, he would always huddle in his little corner in the beginning, but he was very curious. He was a very inquisitive snake. He would always poke out his head, watch me do my thing. Sometimes he'll come closer, but if he feels uneasy, he'll tuck his head right back in, or he'll retreat back to under the couch or something. Look how far he's come now. He's completely fine with me holding him. Now, of course, this is extremely dangerous and stupid, if you will. There's no justifying free handling like this, but it's my choice. And I feel that it is the best way to read my animals, especially my king cobras. I don't want him to see me as a threat or have any little doubt in his mind that I intend to hurt him. He, like I said, hated boots, hated any form of footwear, and in the beginning even socks couldn't cut it. So I was often in the room barefoot. With my Oracle video being posted a month ago or so, I've talked a lot about king cobras and their hunting abilities. Now, I've mentioned before that their eyesight is incredible, seeing up to 300 feet and tracking their prey down quite easily. I didn't demonstrate how well their tongue flicks and their nose can work. Now I have a demonstration, a test, to see how well he can track down a meal without seeing it, only tasting the air and pinpointing the location. I'll stuff him into my backpack and be on my way. Here I have a frozen roadkill Burmese python, put in the freezer 2 years ago to kill off lingering parasites or diseases and viruses. Though no method is really 100%, I still treat all of my kings monthly. 15 minutes in hot water and it's ready to serve. It may not look like much to you, but to Aspire, it's a big favorite. I've placed it on the table here, a good height from Aspire and not impossible to reach, nor high risk of him breaking things around the room getting to it. Now, of course, he doesn't come out right away. He makes sure to make quite the entrance. Before this dangerous serpent hunts, he confuses his audience by hypnotizing them, killing them with cuteness. Once his derpy ass is out of the bag, he picks up on the scent immediately. The aircon is switched off so he can better focus. He starts heading to the table right away, just within minutes of sniffing the air. And he continues sniffing at the ground, as normally kings follow invisible scent trails. This of course confuses him a bit, because the prey magically teleported onto the table without slithering there. It takes him about 10 minutes of flicking back and forth that scent to the Jacobson's organ until he finally figures out that the prey is in fact above him. For kings, climbing is never an obstacle. Juveniles and adults spend a fair amount of their time settled or traversing through the trees. Pretty safe compared to the ground. Eventually, he gets up onto the table in roughly 20 minutes after I unzipped the bag. He sees his meal lying there, but is still cautious, taking time with his approach. Some kings will go all in, eye for an eye, and fight their prey. I find that the older ones, like Aspire or Oracle anyway, prefer to coordinate their strikes with better accuracy and minimum risk decisions. He strikes quickly near the python. No reaction. He's confused. Pauses for a second. Then rams the python with a pump full of venom. It's obviously a dead snake to us, but for them, sometimes the risk ain't worth taking. He waits about a minute, then begins to start swallowing. During the stage, snakes are extremely vulnerable, with only 2 courses of action: regurgitate and flee, or try to flee with the meal hanging out of the mouth and think the rest out later. The 2 top rows of teeth start working down the meal. The process works like you dragging yourself up a mountain with a pair of ice picks. And I know you're asking, how do they breathe when their mouth is full? Well, unlike us, they can extend their glottis, which connects to the windpipe. That's that tunnel thing you see coming out the mouth, enabling them to continue breathing while swallowing large prey. Nom after nom after nom, he works his way to the tip of the tail. Sometimes they have a rough time, as it's so small that their jaws are too big to grab onto it. They normally rub against the surface, but in this case I lend a helping hand. Now that he's done with the meal, it's time to hop back into my backpack. Out he goes, back to sleep in his enclosure. Big thanks to Aspire for being such a great sport, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.